Am I the a-hole for moving out of my parents' house without telling them? I'm 26F and my younger sister is 23F. For as long as I can remember, we've been treated like second-class citizens in our own home. My parents didn't just have favorites, they had a golden child, and his name is my brother, who's now 20M. The second he was born, our parents' entire world revolved around him. It wasn't subtle. They had always wanted a boy, and when they finally got one, it was like we became invisible. The favoritism was so obvious that people outside our immediate family noticed. I'm talking family, friends, distant relatives, neighbors, people who didn't even live with us could see it. Some of them actually confronted my parents about it over the years. My dad's reaction was always to sit there silently, as if he wasn't part of the problem. My mom's reaction was to get defensive and angry, yelling at anyone who dared suggest she treated us unfairly. She would make us out to be ungrateful, lazy, or just difficult. It was humiliating. When it came to my brother, though, the treatment was the polar opposite. Every little thing he did, a good grade, a sports practice, even just wearing a certain shirt, was worthy of praise. They bragged about him constantly, telling anyone who would listen that he was destined for greatness. And here's the thing, I never blamed him for it. He didn't ask to be treated like the favorite, and as he got older, he actually became aware of how unfair it was. We'd joke about it sometimes, but there were also moments where he'd call me to warn me when our parents were in one of their moods, so I could look out for my sister. Growing up, my mother's focus for me was never education or personal growth, it was chores. Every single day, before I could even think about touching my homework, I had to vacuum the entire house top to bottom, make dinner, do the dishes, walk the dog, collect the trash from every room, clean the kitchen, and whatever other random things she decided I had to do that day. Sometimes it was scrubbing floors, sometimes it was reorganizing cabinets. It didn't matter if I had a big test the next day or was exhausted from school. By the time I sat down to do homework, it was late, I was drained, and my grades reflected it. The only place I found joy was choir. It was the one thing that made me feel like me. But even that got overshadowed by my brother's activities. If my choir concert and his football practice happened on the same day, they'd go to his practice every time. Not a game, just practice. My aunt or grandparents would step in for me, sitting in the audience, so I wouldn't be alone. They knew it wasn't fair, but they also knew arguing with my mom was pointless. As I got older, the responsibilities only grew. When I was in trade school, I was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I would leave the house at 8 a.m. and get home at 1 a.m., exhausted and barely able to keep my eyes open. Even then, my parents complained that I wasn't pulling my weight because I wasn't doing chores anymore. At one point, they actually tried to charge me rent while I was in school and working 2 jobs. The final breaking point came last year in August. After COVID hit, I lost my job and had to move back in with them. I knew there would be strings attached, but I needed a place to stay while I got back on my feet. The house we lived in is old, like built in the 1800s old, and it has a lot of electrical issues. That summer, the washer and dryer in the basement started acting up. If you ran them at the same time, they'd stop working. The dryer was brand new, so my mom immediately declared that the washer was broken. She told my sister and me that if we wanted to use the new washer, we'd each have to give her $200 to cover it. I suggested maybe the washer wasn't broken. Maybe it was the outlet or wiring, especially since they'd had to hire an electrician earlier in the year to change the wattage. I didn't say it rudely. I wasn't trying to challenge her authority. I just wanted to avoid wasting money. But that's when she snapped. She started screaming at me from across the house, her voice echoing through the walls. "Oh, you think you know everything, don't you?" she yelled. "Not everything you say is right. You're not the smartest person in the room just because you went to school." It went on for several minutes. When she finally calmed down, she looked me straight in the eyes and, in this cold, smug tone, said, "So, have you found a new place to move to yet?" I just said, "I'm still looking." But the truth? I'd already signed a lease, put down the deposit, and was moving out later that month. Her question just solidified my decision not to tell her. I made my plans in secret. My brother and my boyfriend at the time offered to help me. We chose a day when my mom would be coaching lacrosse and my dad would be at work. We had exactly a 2-hour window to get everything out. The day came, and my heart was pounding from the moment I woke up. I watched from my bedroom window as my mom pulled out of the driveway. The second her car disappeared down the road, I grabbed my keys, drove to the nearest U-Haul, and parked it in front of the house. We moved fast, throwing clothes into boxes, wrapping up my few pieces of furniture, and hauling everything out to the truck. I kept glancing at the clock, terrified she'd come home early. We didn't talk much while we worked. It was all just the sound of footsteps on the stairs, boxes being set down, and the occasional crash when something bumped into the wall. At one point, my brother laughed and said, "She's gonna lose her mind when she notices." By the time we finished, my room was completely empty except for a few hangers in the closet. We locked up, shut the truck, and drove away. I remember looking in the rearview mirror as the house got smaller and smaller, feeling this strange mix of fear, relief, and disbelief. My extended family was nothing but supportive. In fact, we turned it into a running joke. We placed bets on how long it would take my parents to realize I was gone. I'd just come back from a week-long trip to Kansas City, and my mom hadn't even noticed I'd been gone that whole time. She assumed I was upstairs in my room. To everyone's surprise, my dad noticed within a couple of days, but only because he went into my room looking for something. To this day, I have no idea what he was searching for. Since then, the only contact I've had with him has been the occasional happy birthday or Merry Christmas text. My mom hasn't spoken to me at all. My relatives tell me I did the right thing. My brother and sister understand why I left, but they think I should reach out. I disagree. 2 days after she screamed at me about the washer, my sister texted me saying they'd sold it, meaning it wasn't broken at all. They just wanted a new one and were trying to make us pay for it. So here I am, months later, wondering, am I the a-hole for moving out without telling them?